This is the Floridaville. Get to know the people behind the Florida names you know. I'm your host, Rosanna Catalano. On this episode, we get to know Mike McCann, a Jacksonville entrepreneur with a very successful furniture company, Jaxco. Mike is a big believer in tithing and uses the platform of his business to give back to his beloved community on the first coast of Florida. We are recording remotely today. I'm in Tallahassee, and our guest today is Mike McCann, who's speaking to us from his home office in Neptune Beach. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You own Jaxco Furniture in Jacksonville, Florida. Can you tell us about your business?
Sure. So we started in 2018 with 3 employees and 1 delivery person, including myself. In 2019 was our first full year of business, and we were at about $2.3 million in sales. And if you fast forward to today, we have 9 employees plus me and 3 delivery guys, and they're all off-duty firemen. So most of the people that we serve in our community are going to be first-time home buyers or people who are even coming in to just add that extra accessory or maybe that spare bedroom mattress. So we've kind of got a wide, broad base of customers.
Now, obviously, we have just lived through a pandemic. We are still living through part of this pandemic. How did that affect your business?
It was very challenging, like many other businesses. But fortunately, we're a small enough operation to where we could adjust and we could change kind of our paths and our focus. So immediately when we went into quarantine, there were still some people who had moved during this. They didn't get any kind of warning, and they still needed bedroom furniture or mattresses or living room furniture, whatever it was. So we still had to continue to be able to serve them. But we also shifted our focus in ways to be able to help out the people for their immediate needs, because a lot of people, for example, had to start working from home. And with 2 kids at home plus a spouse, they didn't have a home office. So our desk sales have gone through the roof in the past few months. So we did anything that we could to adjust and really just, like I said, serve the community in the ways that they needed to be served.
What kind of furniture can people expect to see when shopping at your store and your online store?
Pretty much anything that they need to furnish their home, including mattresses, bedroom furniture, living and dining room sets. We even have outdoor furniture. And kind of a growing category for us, too, as we find the right vendors who can supply them, is also accessories. So maybe that coffee table, maybe that new throw, or maybe that kind of piece of artwork. Those kinds of things are really a growing, piece of our business as well.
How did you get into that furniture business?
It started off as just beer money in college. I knew a husband and wife who were selling mattresses out of the back of an office building, and they took me in and kind of gave me a job to be able to learn. And as they grew, my responsibilities grew. So I literally started sweeping the floors and helping the delivery guy put out mattresses into people's homes. And as the company grew from 1 store and about $60,000 in sales over the course of approximately 7 years, I stayed with the company. I stayed with the husband and wife. They were CEO, CFO, and I was the director of operations. We grew into 50 plus operational stores and over $25 million in sales. And I learned the entire business top to bottom, inside and out throughout that course of time. So it was like my apprenticeship is what I like to refer to it as.
A fellow podcaster, AJ Scales, put you on my radar and suggested to me that I interview you. Shout out to his comedy podcast called AJ Presents The Greater Good. AJ told me that you do amazing community service through your business. Can you tell us about that?
Definitely. That's a big part of what we do. So a little backstory. Before I was back into the furniture business, I gathered some friends and family, and part of what we did, not really part of an organization or anything like that, was we fed families on Thanksgiving, and then we adopted some kids during Christmas holidays, because if they didn't have food to eat on Thanksgiving, they dang sure didn't have any Christmas gifts. So I was blessed to be able to be the one who actually went out and made some of the donations to the families. And I found out that one family, it was a military family, had a young daughter who was basically sleeping on a pallet of blankets. And it just ripped my heart out that I couldn't go into a warehouse and grab a mattress and donate that to them, because I wasn't in the business at that time. Fast forward about a year and a half, and Jaxco Furniture is open, and I made it my personal mission and kind of built it into the business that this is what we're going to do. I grew up in church, and so tithing is a part of what I do as a Christian. And the way that we tithe into our community is that we donate mattresses to families. We still donate meals during Thanksgiving, and we still adopt kids at Christmas time. But now that it's not just me, I have the power of the store and the leverage and the outreach of the store. We've been able to exponentially grow what we're doing and have a larger community impact. in 2019 alone, we donated over 75 mattresses to families and veterans in need. And out of all the things that we've done, that's the thing that I'm most proud of.
That's wonderful. I had read on your website that you also use your store for some community activities.
We do. We started off doing that, and it's been kind of a challenge. We have to find the right operations who need a store like ours. But we're in the process right now, for example, of actually having community, physical therapists and a chiropractor come in to be able to kind of run operations and meet customers who potentially have mattress needs, but also have back needs and things like that. So we try to partner with other people in the community who are going to be able to, we can kind of cross market and we can kind of really do things together to multiply our forces.
On top of being an entrepreneur, you are an author. Tell us about the books you have written and what they're about.
So writing is something that just, I didn't grow up wanting to be a writer, but at some point I remember hearing a mentor of mine, he gave me an article to read. And one of the lines in that article was, you should write the book that you've always wanted to read. You should open the business that you've always wanted to, go be a patron of. You should, that's what you should do with your life. And there's this story from when I played football in college, and our second year in school was just an incredible story, something that you would see on ESPN or a 30 for 30 or even a movie that would be made out of this. And nobody outside of my small little 3,300 undergrad student school, Charleston Southern, had ever really heard about this. There's some folks in Charleston where the school is located that kind of knew what happened, but the story was incredible. We had a teammate of ours who passed away just before the season started, and we dedicated the season to him. And the way that the season ended and the way that the book ends is nothing short of a miracle. And it was a story that people didn't know about. And I took it as my mission. There was a certain point in life when I'd left the previous furniture company that I talked about, and I didn't know what I wanted to do next. But I knew that this was just burning inside of me to be able to put that book out there. So it's on Amazon now, and it can be picked up by anybody on Kindle or on actual paperback.
Tell us the title of your book.
Oh, it's Believe, EG21, Play Like There Is No Tomorrow.
Great. And what prompted you to start writing? Were you always a writer?
I haven't always been a writer, but I did figure out kind of in a little bit later in life that writing helps me to clarify my thoughts. So you walk around all day long and you've got a million thoughts that are running through your mind, and maybe we have a nice, calm conversation like we are now, and I'm able to put some of those thoughts into words. But then if you look at a transcript of an audio conversation, it may have some ums and ahs and uhs, and I'm working through my thoughts verbally. But when you write something down, you have to really clarify what you're trying to say so that the reader has no interpretation. You don't have to interpret it. You understand exactly what I'm trying to say. So I thought that the more that I wrote, the clearer my thinking was. So ever since then, when I decided I wanted to start writing, it's been hundreds of blog posts and the books and everything that's come out of it has really helped me to understand really in a lot of ways who I am and what my thoughts are on different topics. When did you start writing? I was about 24, 25 years old when I first started writing. I'm 34 now, so I've got a few years under my belt.
Well, let's talk about your childhood. Tell us about your parents.
So my father was a high school football coach. He actually coached professionally for a couple of years. That was a majority of what he did. And that had a huge impact on me. Like I said, I played football in college. So football was very formative in my life, and that it brought me into interactions with people who I probably never would have met had it not been for sports. And it was something that taught me a lot of life lessons. My mother she still is a personal trainer. So she's always been in the fitness and exercise industry. She's someone who's kind of carved her own path, much more of like an entrepreneurial spirit. And so I get that from her. And
do you have any siblings?
I do. I have one younger brother and one older stepbrother. My younger brother was like me, grew up playing football, and he's a larger version of me.
Now, I read that you not only played football, but you also were a lifeguard. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Sure. So I grew up in Neptune Beach, and Neptune and Jacksonville Beach, actually, where I live today. And throughout the seasons of being in school and playing high school sports, there wasn't a lot that I could do while I was in school, but my summer times were free and they were open. And one of my coaches was the captain over at the Neptune Beach Lifeguard Station. Said, "Hey, you'd be great at this. Why don't you come out and try out?" And ever since then, I spent most of my childhood summers, or my teenage summers at least, as a lifeguard in Neptune Beach. And it was a wonderful experience because I got to really, I was younger, but I got the opportunity to really make a difference and literally save people's lives. So very cool experience.
Very cool. You have an undergraduate and graduate degree from Charleston Southern University. What led you to CSU?
Football led me to CSU. As I mentioned, football has been a big part of my life. Coming out of high school, I had the opportunity to be able to earn a scholarship, and I was offered a few different scholarships in different places. And CSU had this tug on me. It was a little bit smaller of a school than the other schools that offered me scholarship opportunities, but I had the opportunity to play early, and I had the opportunity to build something from scratch, because the year that I committed to going to school, the year before I got there, the football team was 1-11. So they only won one game. They weren't very good, but I was recruited on the promise that you can help us build something. And sure enough, I was a part of the first winning season in school history. I was a part of a 14-game win streak that went back to back with 2 seasons, and a 9-win season, which was the first ever in that context. And since then, the football program has grown tremendously, and it's something that I'm extremely proud to have been a part of.
Building things up and being part of something new and building it up seems to be a recurrent theme in your life. Have you noticed that?
I have noticed that, yes. It seems like I like to take on very big, very large projects. And I'm a very patient person. I know that Rome isn't going to be built in a day, I'll put it that way. And I have no problem going to work day by day and putting brick on top of brick to build something that's long lasting, that's long term, because that's the way I think. I think about things in a very long, broad context. And that's what I like to do, is I like to build things up so that I can look back and say, I was a part of that big thing all at once.
After college, you worked in South Carolina, but you eventually returned to Florida's First Coast. What brought you back?
Family brought me back. My father passed away a couple of years ago, and it was an opportunity that I had for work to come down to Jacksonville. And I thought that it would be a temporary stay. I thought that it would only be for about a year, and then I would move back to Charleston. But it turns out that my family needed me here. And I really realized at that same time that I wanted to be here. And so after I'd already determined that I was going to stay in Jacksonville, that's really when Jacksonville Furniture opened up. And since that's been open, that's going to keep me here for quite a long time.
For a time before starting your furniture business, you worked in healthcare IT. How did you get that job?
That speaks to the power of networking and networking alone. When I was finished writing the book and I didn't know what was going to be next for me, I had all this experience in furniture, but I didn't feel like I needed to be back in that industry. I wanted to try some new things, and I reached out to some friends who were recruiters and some friends who own different companies. And it turns out that some of them were based in Jacksonville, because that's obviously where I grew up and had a lot of connections still. And it was an interesting opportunity that I wasn't really sure what I was getting myself into, but a great learning experience.
On this show, we talk to a number of people with an entrepreneurial spirit. What kind of mindset do you think you need to become a successful business owner?
I think you need to be prepared to hustle, first off, because there's not always a 9-to-5 set schedule, and there's not always a roadmap for where you're going and what you're trying to do. So you have to be able to be flexible, and you have to be able to work hard. And it might not look like exactly what you planned it as, but if you can remain flexible and always keep your eye on the prize, and just, like I said, put one brick on top of the other, then you'll be able to be successful. But you also have to have that exact patience that I talked about, because it's going to be very difficult. There's going to be days that aren't as easy as others.
What advice do you have for first-time business owners trying to finance their business? And a business like yours in furniture, obviously you need a lot of inventory. So talk to me a bit about what advice you'd give folks trying to finance their business and trying to get their hands on some inventory.
Very true. Our business is a very asset-heavy business because we do keep stock of a lot of products. So that obviously has to be paid for at some point. My best advice, no matter what industry you're going to be in, is keep more operating capital than you think you need, because there's going to be something like a COVID-19 that's going to come up, and you're not going to have enough money in the bank to last for 3-6 months, whatever it is. And that's a lesson that we've had to learn over the past few months when we went into quarantine and our sales took a 60+% hit. The fact that we came into this business and we were financed properly is really the only thing that's kept us afloat throughout some of the challenges of the first couple years in business.
I know from personal experience that growing a business is hard work. On a number of occasions, the thought of throwing in the towel has crossed my mind. What would you say to a business owner who is experiencing a crossroad or a disappointment?
I think that you have to go back before then, before you even open up, before you've made that leap. There's an excellent book by one of my favorite author. His name's Seth Godin, and the book is called The Dip. And in The Dip, Seth talks about how in every entrepreneurial experience, or maybe a project such as writing a book, anything like that, there's going to be challenges. And if you determine ahead of time what will just be a challenge and what's going to be a quitting point, then that's how you get through it. For example, again, I'll use that football analogy. You don't quit in training camp, because at that point, you've already committed to the season. You've already committed to saying that I'm going to be here. I am going to do this. But if you're not committed to it, you're going to quit at the earliest sign of adversity. And as an entrepreneur, you're going to face a lot of adversity.
We like to end our show with a little fun by asking all of our guests the same 7 questions. What would people be surprised to know about you?
That I'm actually pretty introverted. I really like to just snuggle up with a book and go down to the beach and read. That's how I recharge.
When you have guests in town, where is your favorite place to take them?
If the day is right, I love to take them over to Hotel Palms, which is just up the street from us. It's a small boutique hotel owned by a friend of mine, and they have the best coffee on the weekends.
What is the name of a book you recently read? Excuse me. What is the name of a book you recently read that you could not put down, or the name of a show you enjoyed binge watching?
A book that I just finished, and it's been on my shelf for months because I've been wanting to read it and I had such high expectations, is Flow, The Psychology of Optimal Experience. And I'm going to completely ruin the author's name, but it's by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi.
Among your close family and friends, what are you best known for?
Unfortunately, for the amount of time that I put into work, I think that my work has been something that I've always taken pride in. I think that's defined me in a lot of ways.
If you have a nickname, who gave it to you?
I do have a nickname, and it's actually Biff, like Marty McFly and Back to the Future. And I was given that nickname many years ago when I showed up for a soccer tryout, and I was much larger than most of the other soccer players because I came straight from the football team.
If you knew you could not fail, what would you attempt?
I would do exactly what I'm doing right now.
What are the top 3 things you love about living in Florida?
Oh, that's easy. Sunrises in the mornings, no matter what it looks like, always beautiful. Rainstorms in the summertime and the springtime, right about now, being inside and hearing that on the roof of my house. And the third is being able to be out on the water. Be very fortunate to be surrounded by water and have a number of friends with boats, and those are some of my favorite days.
Well, Mike, it has been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today. Can you tell folks where they can get a hold of furniture from you?
Sure. The easiest way to find us is online at jaxcofurniture.com. That's JAXCO Furniture. And then we're also all over social media. We put tons of videos and content up on Facebook and Instagram, and that's where we present a lot of our newest pieces.
Well, I'm in need of a new coffee table, so I may have to go visit you.
We'd love to help.
Thanks so much for being here today. We appreciate it, and you have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
The Floridaville now has a channel on YouTube, so check it out. Be sure to subscribe and rate our podcast on your favorite listening platforms. We are always looking for unique life stories to tell about the wonderful people that make our state shine. So send us your suggestions. Our email address is feedback@thefloridaville.com.